So welcome to the Courageous Nerd YouTube channel. My name is Connor. I'm joined today by Oliver Dench. Oliver, how are you doing today?
I'm very well indeed. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well, and I was just thinking there behind you. It looks very nice. Whereabouts are you?
Yeah, I'm in sunny Honduras. It's
Nice, nice.
gorgeous. I'm in a
Yeah,
little island called Utila.
is that for work, or are you just like for
I'm actually
pleasure?
just I'm it's for pleasure. I'm just here to visit my sister. She's been backpacking around a bit, so I thought I'd come out and hang out with her for a couple of
Oh,
weeks.
lovely. And I guess on the subject of family, to make a very slick segue here, you obviously have a very strong acting lineage. Obviously, your great aunt and your
Mhm.
grandfather both, heavily involved in the acting industry. But I suppose, like, away from their individual, careers, like, how did you get involved? Like, were you influenced by them, or was it something you wanted to do just yourself
Yeah,
anyway?
I was. I mean, thinking of being here, when I was really young, I wanted to be a marine biologist. I
Oh,
think I
okay.
had an idea that I was really interested in fish, and I am mildly interested in fish, but I don't think that ever really developed into anything serious. When I was in my teens, I started paying a lot more attention to my granddad and his career when he was doing his last few plays at the RSC. I remember going to see him in The Merry Wives of Windsor, and a musical version that Greg Doran directed, and it was amazing. He was very funny. It was very exciting. And I got much more interested in that. I started speaking with him a lot more about Shakespeare and about acting. And that was kind of my segue away from marine biology,
Hmm.
which is not a career that I think I would have excelled at, into acting.
Yeah,
So I
and
was I was pretty inspired by them.
for sure, for sure. And obviously, again, if the last name didn't give it away, that's obviously Judy Dench, and your grandfather's Jeffrey Dench. And would you say they're like classical, like, theatre careers inspired you at all? Like, did you ever want to, like, go down, Shakespeare or that kind of route?
Yeah, completely. That was sort of
Hmm.
all I wanted to do.
Wow.
Um,
Okay.
I I still I'm obsessed with Shakespeare. I remember the first time I was kind of an adult getting myself a Kindle and downloading the complete works onto my Kindle and reading my way through it.
Hmm.
And it was amazing. It was one of the best things I've ever done. I still adore Shakespeare and I would love to do more Shakespeare. And I'm sure I will one day, but I
Hmm.
think I've been spending a bit more time doing TV stuff lately, which has been fun too.
Yeah.
It's the whole thing's been kind of explorative and a learning experience for me in terms of a career and what kind of jobs and things there are out there to do. And
Hmm.
I've been loving it so far.
Yeah. I mean, just obviously as a non-actor, I always hear actors say they seem to enjoy the theatre and working on stage just for the immediate reaction, right? And obviously, you don't get
Yeah,
that necessarily on a set, kind of when you're on the stage and you can kind of gauge it straight away in the moment.
totally.
Yeah, people
Totally.
seem to really like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it comes with a bit of adrenaline, which is always cool for anyone who's a bit of an adrenaline junkie. But I
Mm,
also think the thing that's most attractive to me about it is you have a lot of control, obviously within the parameters of what the director has asked you to do and with the storytelling of the play. But when you're on set with constant cuts and constant reshuffling of things, in my experience, it doesn't necessarily feel that real. You don't do, and also the writing that I've done for screen. I know this varies in some types of films or the way that some people write, but the stuff that I've done for screen
mm,
tends to have shorter scenes. Whereas when you're doing
yeah.
a play, you can settle into it with a really long scene. And once you're up there with the audience, it's really just you and the other actors um, telling a story. And I think there's some freedom and some artistry in that that is very satisfying, along with the instant response of the audience and the adrenaline from being there and doing it while everyone's in rapt attention.
Mm,
It's great. I just finished doing a play in Paris and I had a great time. It was the first one I've done in quite a long time.
lovely, lovely. Yeah, I suppose, like, do you have a favorite Shakespeare play then? Like, I
Oh
guess
yeah,
all of them. Yeah.
loads,
Mm,
loads. Well, so for a long time, I loved Hamlet. Everyone loves Hamlet. It was great. It's a great role, all that kind of stuff. But I don't think it's necessarily the best balanced play. I think Lear is
mm,
unquestionably the best play. It just has the most interesting stuff going on, and it's much better balanced than Hamlet is. Whereas Hamlet's really just about Hamlet. I've seen some amazing actors do amazing things with the other roles, but it's a pretty Hamlet centric play. But then for a long time, I think I need to reread it and really decide whether I still love it. I think it might have just been me trying to be cool and pick something off the wall, but I loved Troilus and Cressida,
right.
which is like a late play. It's not performed very often. It's set in the Trojan War. it's a completely different interpretation of the Trojan War than any that I've seen before. The Achilles in Troilus and Cressida is this horrible thug who kills Hector by cheating.
Mm.
It's a play that starts in the middle of the war and ends in the middle of the war and doesn't really have any sense of completion and doesn't really have any sense of love, or I mean it does, but no one ends up happy, and it's very modern in that way. It feels like a sprawling modern Palme d'Or film that doesn't really have a beginning or an end but means so much. And I remember thinking that was amazing, unlike any of the other Shakespeare plays that I'd read. I love them.
I think definitely for me, I don't know about other people, but my favorite one would just be the one I studied in school, which I guess was Hamlet. So that, and being the first one I was exposed to, that's that's where my kind of loyalty or interest would lie. But I don't know about other people. Maybe that's just me though.
Yeah, no, I totally get that, because I think it's difficult. It's difficult to get into the language and really understand everything about the plays. I think that's what was so good about me having it on my Kindle and reading them throughout, because the more experience you have with the language, the more direct and accessible it is, like with anything.
Yeah.
So at the beginning, when I was reading through them, it was a pain. It was a pain to be Googling words and meanings and to know what sirrah meant, or whatever these things that people kept saying that made no sense to me. But the more you read, or the more you're exposed to it, the more it becomes immediate and it becomes simple to understand. So it's completely understandable that anyone's favorite would be the one they've been exposed to most, the one that they understand the most, because the more you understand in Shakespeare, the more you realize how aggressively genius it is. Or at least that was my experience. I found myself just having my mind blown every time I read more, thinking, oh my god, there's more depth in it. This line is a pun, and it's also an insult, and it's also a reference to something that was happening at the time, and also it's a poem. And I just find that overwhelming, something I can really obsess about.
Yeah. Obviously, you alluded to like screen work a bit earlier, and obviously, I think the big example for that at the moment is Hotel Portofino, currently in its second series. And I suppose just for anyone who hasn't caught up with it yet, like how would you describe the premise, or like how would you set the show up?
Yeah, it's set in the 1920s. It is about an English family who moves to Portofino in Italy to start a hotel. With a matriarchal figure at the helm, Bella, who's played by Natasha, who is a wonderful, wonderful actor. It's about her dealing with the intricacies of local Italian politics and everything that she needs to do to set up a hotel, while trying to wrangle her family, her son, me, and her daughter, and her husband, who is particularly in need of wrangling. Try to make sure they don't get themselves into any trouble. It's fun. It's a very, very beautiful, very, very nice watch for the winter, which it is now. For you, not for me. It is the summer here.
Lucky you. Yeah. I suppose having what we just talked about with the Shakespeare and looking into that. I mean, did you know much about the 1920s as a time period, or did you have to do a lot of research to kind of get used to that?
Yeah, I had to do quite a lot of research. I remembered what I learned in school, sort of post-war things, but the post-war period seemed to be quite specific to the country that you were talking about. I remember studying the Weimar Republic and learning about Germany, and I remember learning about post-war Britain and all that interwar period. I did not know that much about Italy. I knew the name Mussolini, and I knew that something vaguely terrible happened there, but beyond that, not a whole lot. So we spent a lot of time learning about what the political and social sphere was in Italy at the time. And also for me, my character is a painter, and I was really interested in the art that was happening at the time and what the directors and writers and producers wanted my character's art to be like. Not that they let me paint for myself, which I was really upset about. I was desperate to do so. But I was interested in what kind of art movements would have been happening in Italy at the time. And they were doing some crazy modern stuff, some really remarkable kind of socially invigorating stuff. And then what that would have been like for my character, an Englishman who would not have been part of those movements, what he was interested in, the kind of paintings he wanted to do, coming over to Italy, being more exposed to a different world of art. I found that exciting. I found the idea that in the 20s, without the advent of Google and the internet, he wouldn't have been exposed to different art styles and different paintings unless he went to go and see them. So the stuff that he would have been exposed to in England and the UK pre-war would have been radically different to the sort of stuff he saw in Italy post-war, and then him
Yeah.
going to Italy and it being the birthplace of the Renaissance, and him being able to see, you know, the old masters and go to Florence and see
Mm.
whatever else would have been a great experience for him. So I was doing a lot of, for my character specifically, who like actively takes a back seat and is not interested in the local politics.
Mm.
That was some of the stuff that I was more interested in looking up.
Yeah, and I suppose like back when you were in the casting process, was obviously you play the character Lucian. Was that always the part you were reading for, or was that always like
Yeah,
who they had you in mind to play? Yeah.
yeah, I think so. I don't think, well, you know, anything could shift around and anyone could play anyone, but I
Mm.
think they always had me in mind for Lucian. I definitely never saw any other sides for
Mm.
characters other than Lucian, but I've loved it. I
Yeah.
feel very happy with the character I'm playing.
Can you relate to him, or is he very different from you?
Yeah, I can relate to him.
Mm.
I think, I feel as though it's important for an actor to be able to relate to the character in some way. I know lots of people talk about never passing judgment on a character.
Right.
I personally also think it's important to pass judgment in a way, because you have to know what you're trying to express. And if your character has negative qualities, it's important to understand those negative qualities and know that you're trying to express them. Um, at the same time, it's important to try and relate as best you can and understand where those whatever negative qualities come from, so that you can play them as realistically as possible. So there's lots of things about Lucian that I relate to, lots of things that I've really enjoyed languishing in. He's obsessed with beauty and life. He finds those things distracting from his mental health issues, and I think that's a great thing to be talking about. And another thing that made me interested in the show is how those issues would have been dealt with in the 1920s versus now in the 2020s
Mm.
is obviously so radically different. And there's lots of things about the way he relates to the world in his own mind that I can really relate to.
Mm. Yeah, you briefly mentioned Natasha, and I'm sorry if I butcher her surname, McElhone. I can never
Yeah,
really get, yeah, McElhone, great. Yeah, who
yeah,
obviously she's had like a long and very varied, like career-wise, varied roles in her career, I should say.
mm,
And if people aren't realizing kind of, if they can't visualize her, The Truman Show,
mm.
Californication, just a couple there to name a few. But how was your experience of working with her?
She's wonderful.
Mm.
She's very, very wonderful. She's very, very sweet. She um she has some wonderful kids
Mm.
who come out to visit her quite a lot, and they're great hanging
Mm.
around with those boys. And she's an interesting actor. She makes interesting, good choices with scenes, and I find that really invigorating to work with. Everyone on that job is
Mm.
like that. They all bring so much of a sense of character to the show, especially now that we finished shooting the second season now.
Yeah.
Um, now that everyone has a much more secure sense of character and certainty about what they're trying to play, it was a real joy to be on set. Natasha would come and have a certain idea about a scene and say, I want to be doing this is what I'm trying to get across. And that makes everyone's job much more easy. I don't know from the point of view of the directors and the DOPs
Mm.
and everyone else, but from my point of view, if someone comes in with a strong idea and I have my strong idea, then it's much easier to work out, okay, this makes sense because then this bit I'll say this and then you do that, and the lines will really slot into each other in a way that works, rather than us as actors bumbling through it and making a boring scene. And
Mm.
Natasha never makes a boring scene. She's very good.
Yeah, I always find it really interesting to ask in terms of coming back for a second season after doing the first one, because I could be wrong. I feel like with most shows, like season 2, episode 1 to be the first episode that the audience would have already watched the show, if that makes sense. Because I think a lot of shows go through all of season 1 before it's aired, and then season 2 be okay, people have seen it now. So like, how was that kind of feeling of coming back for the second time around?
For me, it's amazing.
Mm.
It's amazing. I think it's a different experience. At the beginning of season 1, there's a different type of collaboration where we're all getting together to look at the scripts that our wonderful writer has written, work with our wonderful director, work with the rest of the cast, and all really try and work out who these characters are together and what the sort
Mm.
of story we're trying to tell is. After that's been, and then that goes to everyone else in terms of collaboration. Then that goes to the editor and the post-production, the producers give notes, and the network and everyone. It's a wonderful collaboration to make a character.
Mm.
And an actor is only one part of that. I think once the actor, at least this is how I this is something I find useful. I'm sure this would not be the same for everyone. Once I'm able to see it, which is sometimes uncomfortable because it's not what I expected, or you have body dysmorphia, or whatever it is that you're looking at and you feel uncomfortable with. Sometimes it's uncomfortable, but it's a process to see, oh, I see between everyone else, that's how the script really comes together. That's how the editor has really seen it. This is how the director has really pitched that scene. We're focusing on these aspects of the character that I may not have understood that while we were shooting. Not always. You don't always have a full picture of a collaboration that's happening with dozens of artists who are all doing wonderful, wonderful work. And once you can see it, you understand your place in the story and how this character is really being told. And then you can go into season 2 understanding what we're all going for. And I think that makes it a different type of collaboration next, because now in the second series, it's more me saying, I understand what we're doing. I'm going in hard with this. And then the director, who at this point trusts us because we've worked together for however long, says, I understand what you're saying. I trust you. That sounds like a great idea. We can focus on, it's a different type of collaboration. And I find the deeper we get into it, very satisfying.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously you mentioned the sense of collaboration. I know that the primary writer for Hotel Portofino is Matt Baker, and like, what do you enjoy about his writing and like performing his words?
For me, I enjoy there's a lot of nuance in the writing, especially in season 1 and the storylines, and even in season 2 as well, when the storylines become more varied and dramatic. I guess it's something about the 20s. There's always this mask of politeness in the way people are speaking and dancing around what they really mean, possibly. Means you can come to a scene and it's not always immediate what the subtext is, but there's nuance in that writing, and that's a real gift to an actor to play with. And I think that's the case with any script, really. But obviously, the better written it is, the more nuance you have to play with. But that's a fun thing to find, a fun, again, element of collaboration that we can come to with our other actors and say, what are we going to do? What is this scene about? And then you see, oh, I get it. We are, talking about such and such a thing, but the subtext is in another place. I've enjoyed working with that on this project. It's different from other things that I've worked on.
Absolutely. And obviously, I know it's on ITV1 over here in the UK, but like, where can people around the world, see this show?
It's on PBS Masterpiece in America, and it's on Foxtel in Australia. I think season 2 has just started on Foxtel in Australia. I think they got it first. And then it's on Sky Italia in Italy. I think they also have just had season 2. And then the wider world, I am not totally certain. But
Fair
I
enough.
think it's available.
Yeah, very good. I suppose just to wrap this up, I'll ask, are there any other upcoming projects people can expect, or is there anything else you kind of have coming up in your future that you're excited about?
I've been writing a lot with a friend of mine, Manuel Pacific. We've been working on a kids TV show that's in the early stages of production, which I'm thrilled about because it's fun and I love kids TV. I think you can tell amazing stories when you're not patronizing or talking down to children.
Yeah.
And I think we all remember the shows we watched as children so vividly because we watched them over and over again. I think they're important. I'm excited about that, but that's in the very early stages of development. So what I'll tell you when something exciting happens. And then apart from that, no, I just finished this play in France and now I'm relaxing.
Great.
As you can see.
Lovely. Yeah. Yeah, no, because
Yeah.
I think that's a great thing about kids TV, because if it's done well, you can watch it again as an adult. Because obviously it's adults writing it, and you can see it in a completely different way. Because obviously, when you're a child, you watch it and you see it one way, and then when you watch it as an adult, okay, that's like a concept they were trying to tell us. But obviously, as a kid, it just went over your head. But as an adult, you get it. I think that's when it's done really well, when you can get that.
I agree, and it's about nuance again, isn't it? It's about things that can sink in subtly, and there are very important social, messages or perceptions of things that are always innately going to be laced into any kind of TV. And for kids, it's even more important. You can tell stories of acceptance or, big important ideas like anti-racism that it's good to lace into programs, and the more people get exposed to that when they're younger, the more they'll understand that as an innate quality of the world. which is, a step in combating it socially worldwide. I know it's not the only step. I know it's not maybe the most important step, but I think it is. I think education is a massive, massive part of that as a battle, and kids' TV is part of passive education.
For sure. Well, I mean, obviously, best of luck with that venture and with the show in Hotel Portofino and everything else. And thank you for taking the time to chat today. And all the best. And take care.
Thank you very much. Have a great day.
Likewise.